Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.
Good morning and welcome to the Cheshire and Warrington Pledge Partnership on the Learn Live channel. The idea behind the Cheshire and Warrington Pledge is to put employers at the heart of inspiring, informing and communicating with the next generation of employees in the Cheshire and Warrington areas. There are opportunities for a variety of roles such as warehouse operatives, accountants, politicians and computer network architects, and that's just to name a few. These will be featured on the Learn Live channel with the sole purpose to help make you stand out to future employers on the field that you want to be in. So far, we've heard from great companies such as Franklin Financial and AstraZeneca. But today, we'll be hearing from Cultural Services Richard Hall. Richard's colleagues Liz, Jonathan and Hannah will be telling us all about the opportunities available at Cultural Services in the museum and art gallery positions you can have and what they involve. Liz is the Collections and Interpretation Officer, Jonathan the Community and Learning Officer, and Hannah is the museum's team leader. Now, if you have any questions, please make sure you ask them in the live chat facility next to the video player. And a member of the team will get back to you and answer any questions you may have. Now, over to Liz, Jonathan and Hannah. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Liz Montgomery. I'm the Collections and Interpretation Officer for West Cheshire Museums, and I'm responsible for looking after the very varied collections across our 4 sites. Collections are what we call the groups of objects which we have in the museum. And my role involves making sure that these collections are properly documented so that we know what we have and where it is, making sure it's safe and well cared for, finding out what the objects can tell us, all their different stories, and then designing exhibitions, events and projects to share that. It's a very varied job, like most museum jobs. Some days I can be clambering around in the stores, up and down ladders, and trying to move big Roman tombstones, or working with tiny, delicate little Anglo-Saxon silver coins. Some days I can be sitting at my desk writing policies or designing exhibitions, planning events with other organisations. And some days I'll be giving talks or leading tours. There's never a dull moment. I'll just hand over to Jonathan now to tell you about his job.
Hi, so my name's Jonathan. I'm the Community and Learning Officer at Lion Saltworks, which is one of the museums at West Cheshire Museums. I'm a Community and Learning Officer, and one of my favourite things about my job is that no 2 days are the same. So like Liz, it's a really, really varied role. I'm responsible for looking after the learning programme. So that's when school children come and visit us and we run education sessions with them. I also look after the volunteering programme. We have a team of about between 40 and 50 volunteers who help us to run our site. And I also do a range of contribute to kind of the events and the exhibitions that happen at the site. And that's to help kind of talk about the site in new ways and offer people new perspective on our history. The other part of my job is I also work across all 4 of our sites to work with young people. I'm currently working with them to produce a festival, which will happen later this year. So I'm going to hand over to Hannah now.
Hello, I'm Hannah and I'm a museums team leader. I help oversee the day-to-day running of all of the West Cheshire Museum sites. My job's quite varied each day, but some of the activities that I get involved in include ensuring the buildings are open, that everything's working for the public, site maintenance and contracts, which means making everywhere safe for both the public and for staff, attending network meetings across the Northwest. That's with people from other museums, just to see how other museums run and to swap ideas with each other. I also help to plan events and exhibitions and then come up with sort of creative ways of marketing them. And I work with a team to develop our audiences as well, which is really interesting and a big piece of work. I'll hand back to Liz.
Thank you. So to start with, I'll tell you a little bit about the museums which we work in. Our museum service, West Cheshire Museums, is made up of 4 museum sites. I mean, you can see some pictures of them there. So the one in the centre, the Grosvenor Museum, is our oldest museum, and it's in central Chester. It was purpose-built as a museum in the Victorian period to house fascinating archaeological artefacts and natural science specimens. And since then, it's continued to collect and display these types of objects, and added art, silver, social history and costume too. The next one, Weaver Hall Museum and Workhouse. This is a great local history museum occupying a former workhouse in Northwich. It's got fascinating displays on the history of local area from prehistoric times all the way through to World War II, so very varied. And it also explores the very important histories of local industries like boat building and chemical manufacturing. The Lion Saltworks is next. So this is our newest museum site. It's actually restored open pan saltworks, where you can find out all about the history of salt and salt making in Cheshire in a really fun and interactive way. You can see from the images there, there's lots to do and lots to try out there on that site. Is Stretton Watermill. This is one of the country's best preserved water-powered corn mills, and we open it seasonally and for special events to share its history and run the machinery to show the science and technology behind it all with our group of dedicated millers. And finally, on the other side of that slide, Chester History and Heritage, which we now call the History Hub, and it's moved into the Grosvenor Museum building, is our local studies library. It keeps wonderful historic photographic surveys of Chester and the surrounding areas, and lots of documents and information about people who lived and worked here too. And so next, we'll have a look at what museums are and what they do. So our service is made up of museums and historic sites. Museums are places which store objects, so things that used to belong to people, were made by people, were used by people, and tell stories about those people. And our main purpose is to care for these objects and display them for people to learn from and enjoy. We call, as I said, we call objects or groups of objects our collections, and we have a lot of them. So art collection, archaeology collection, costume collection, coins, weapons and armour. There's lots of different sorts of things that we look after. And there are lots of different kinds of jobs that you can, that we can do, and you can, in a museum with these collections. So the first one I'm going to talk about is collections care and management. This work is typically done by curators and documentation officers, but it depends on the type of museum that you're working in. It involves making sure we know what we have, that it's all safe and secure on display or in storage, and it's not deteriorating, because we want to make sure the collections are there to be enjoyed and to teach future generations in like 50 or 100 or even 1,000 years time. So we have to be very careful with it all. You can see in some of the slides there the different sorts of work we do. So we do lots of sort of paperwork linking all of the records that we have, some of which are Victorian, all the way through to modern day photographs of objects. We do lots of work in the stores, packing them, making sure they're safe. And you can see at the bottom there, those firemen, we have emergency plans for getting all of the objects out of our buildings if there are any problems, like with fire or flood. We test these out with our local fire crew on a regular basis. So the next type of job you might want to do is sort of research and story sharing. So there are different ways you can do this. One of the main ones is through exhibitions. But in general, it means finding out what the objects mean, what they can tell us about people and the places we live, whether it's to do with history or science or geography and the jobs people used to do, what they used to buy. And we share these through exhibitions or special events, or web and social media content and community projects. And you can see on the screen there, this is our latest exhibition, which is still up at the moment, on treasure. So this is lots of different types of treasure that have been found in Cheshire, whether it's Roman or Viking hoards like at the bottom, or medieval rings. But we've also got sort of personal treasures in there, things that are important to people. The next job you might want to look at is, there's a slide about talks and events there. So we do lots of different types of activities. We do handling sessions, we do craft activities to try and bring events and themes to life. We do community work with lots of different sorts of community groups. And we also do events outside of the museum. You can see at the bottom there some children at Shoplatch Church watching us 3D scan a Viking stone which is set into the wall. So we do go out into the local areas and take our work out there with us. Just go back on. This is learning. So we have great learning teams at our museum sites who teach people using the collections and the sites themselves. They put together really interesting and memorable visits for preschoolers, school-age children, adults and special interest groups. And you can see there's some of our learning sessions in progress at Weaver Hall and at the Grosvenor Museum. And next, and finally, we've got visitor services. So we're really lucky to have a great team of visitor service professionals who welcome and help visitors and help to maintain our buildings and displays for them to enjoy. All of these jobs, though they're very different, come together to make a great museum service and a really fun and interesting experience for visitors. And other jobs that you will see in museums include design, marketing, audience development, media and web content. In our museum service, we all chip in with bits of these, and we're also supported by colleagues in the wider local council which run the museum service. Okay, I'm going to hand over now.
Yeah, so who can get involved in museums? I think when I speak to some of my friends and say they work in a museum, they have a perception that I go around telling everybody not to touch stuff, which is why I put this picture on the slides. I think museums, a lot of people, when we think of museums, they think of objects and not being able to, not possibly being for them. I think that image of, the image of museums and the reality of museums has changed. Museums are for everyone, and I think we work so hard over the last few years to make sure that we provide opportunities for everyone to participate in some way, whether that's coming into our galleries and using our interactives or speaking to our staff and sharing stories. We like to think that museums are for everybody and that we create opportunities for everyone. For West Cheshire Museums in particular, we work really hard to make sure that we engage the local community, and we do perhaps more specific projects and more specific work with local people. So as Liz has already said, one of the things that we do quite a lot of at West Cheshire Museums is work with school groups. You might remember going to visit a museum on your school trip. Our museum sites offer a really wide range of sessions, so that's everything from biking sessions through to Roman sessions to subjects more on topics like local history and geography. What we try to do is really bring the history to life for a school group, so that we kind of excite them, inspire them, and kind of when they go back to school, they just have this most memorable experience that sticks with them. We also work with specific groups in the local community. So, for example, Liz has just finished a really exciting project working with a group called City for Sanctuary. That is people who basically are refugees who've moved to Chester. And she's worked with them to use a collection and explore how people have come to Chester for years and years and years. And kind of Chester has become people's second home for thousands of years. And she's worked with them to produce a really exciting exhibition which will hopefully go up next year. As I said in my introduction as well, part of my job is to work with young people. So I think we're a museum service that's really committed to working with young people. We recognise that yourselves have so much amazing creativity, so many fantastic ideas, and we want to really work with you to embrace them. So part of my job is to work with groups of young people to help us present our collections and our stories in new and exciting ways. So like I said before, I'm currently working with a group of young people to produce a festival which will happen later this year, all inspired by heritage and hope. And this will be kind of the end of a 2-year project where we've been working with groups, and they've done loads of different things in that time. For example, they worked with Liz to learn a little bit more about our natural history collection, and then went away and produced an escape room which was inspired by kind of some of our taxidermy and butterfly specimens. And I think this is really, it's really exciting for us to work with young people, and I think the feedback that we get is so invaluable for them, because they also get so many kind of skills to help them in their future. I think the other way that you can get involved in museums is through more structured approach. So we have a volunteering programme which for people to get involved in. And I think, again, that's a really good way to get loads of skills and experience and to see if working in the museum is for you. So our volunteers help with a wide range of things, from family activities through to research and curation and doing tour guiding. And I think it's great for our volunteers because they get so much experience. They feel they are part of our museum team and a really big part of our team, and they get experience in loads of things, from working with under fives and working with families, to learning more about local history in our collections. And obviously alongside our volunteers, we've got our staff and we've got our paid roles. And I'm going to hand over to Hannah to tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how museums are run and who does what in museums. So at West Cheshire Museums, we have a large team of people that are needed to run the museum sites. We're quite fortunate that we have both paid staff and a team of volunteers, as Jonathan mentioned. Some smaller museums are run purely just by volunteer teams. But yeah, like I said, we're quite fortunate in that way. One of the largest teams at West Cheshire is our visitor services team, as Jonathan said, and they work very hard to keep the museum running. It's also a route into a museum career for a lot of people, and that's why I want to talk about it in a little bit more detail. Our education team is a very important part of running West Cheshire as well, because they help run sessions with school children, but they're also part of our events and learning programmes for adults. And that's something that we're quite keen on encouraging. And obviously behind the scenes we have, as Liz mentioned, interpretation, development and collections team. So our visitor services team, which is the team that I oversee, they're a large team and they undertake a variety of duties across the museum. They have experience in a lot of different areas and come from loads of different backgrounds. So for quite a lot of our visitor services team, it's where they started their career in museums. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door. And the pictures down the side just there, they're all of people that have come from our visitor services team and actually moved their way up into another position in West Cheshire Museums. The duties that visitor services undertake can range from helping behind the scenes, so curatorial and collections team with Liz. They might be planning craft activities for during the school holidays. They could be working in the cafe, or they could be welcoming school children. It really depends on what your interests are. We're quite fortunate that we're able to put all of our visitor services team in position that they really thrive in. And as I said, they have a really important role in running the museum on a day-to-day basis. So if we think about like the day in the life of a visitor services team, they open up the museum and they do any tidying from the day before, check that the museum objects are all in good condition, the building's in good condition, so that it's safe and can be used by the public and for the rest of the staff as well. They then prepare for the day ahead, so that might include setting up craft activities, as I said, during the holidays, preparing the museum cafe, welcoming school children on site, and then it's really up to them, and we sort of hand over to them for the rest of the day really. There's obviously a team leader or a supervisor like myself on site, but the visitor services know the museums inside out. And like I said, it's their job to ensure that the public have a really good day out, and it's a very rewarding job as well. So there's some of our visitor services team here. So we've got Sam, who is a supervisor, visitor services supervisor. She began her career at West Cheshire within our visitor services team as a visitor assistant. She has a Master's of Arts degree in applied art, and she's a jewellery maker as well. And she gets quite heavily involved in our arts programme. So that's someone that's come from quite an artsy background. We've then got Amelia, who is a visitor assistant. Amelia also works as a learning assistant for us as well. She joined West Cheshire a couple of years ago, and since then has completed an MA in Art Gallery and Museum Studies. Okay, I'm now going to hand back over to Liz to talk a little about career pathways and how she got into her career in the museum industry.
Okay, so my route into museums, I've always been really interested in history and archaeology, and I thought it was a job area that I wanted to work in from when I was quite young. But I only decided that I wanted to work in museums rather than as something like a field archaeologist or a teacher while I was doing my degree, which is in ancient history and archaeology at the University of Leicester. I did really enjoy going out on digs and uncovering the past, but what I really loved more and still love was finding out about objects and events and telling people about them. Before and all through university, I volunteered in museums to get experience, and this was really helpful. And honestly, this sort of experience, as Jonathan's already mentioned, is absolutely invaluable for getting a job in museums in the future. It's also really useful for making connections with people who are already working in museums. And some of these people might be the ones who are making decisions about who they hire, so they're always useful to know. I did a master's degree in museum studies too. After I graduated from university, it was really difficult to get a job in museums. at that time. So I worked as a PA for NHS managers, which gave me some great transferable skills, and in shops and pubs, which gave me good customer service and people skills. And employers will always look for these on your job applications, so they're useful to have. When I did get a job in a museum, it was only a short-term contract for 6 months, as were my 4 jobs after that. But don't let these temporary contracts put you off. It's all great experience and foot in the door, which is really important. The biggest tip I'd give someone wanting to work in museums and heritage is to get as much experience as you possibly can, whether it's through volunteering, one-off projects, or on temporary contracts. And finally, don't be too focused just on one area of museum work. I trained as an archaeologist, but now I look after loads of different sorts of collections, and I've learned about those collections on the job, which lots of people do. And I wanted to be a curator, but before I got there, I've worked in visitor services, in learning teams, as documentation officer, on exhibitions and events, and I've done the cleaning, and I've picked up great skills all the way along, sort of in my career, to help me do the job that I do now. The last thing that I'm going to say is the great thing about museums and heritage organisations is that they're creative hotbeds. So the chances are, whatever job you get in a museum, you'll be working with the whole team there on really interesting projects, even if it's not strictly within your role. So I'm going to hand over to Jonathan now to talk about his route into museums.
Yeah, so I went and did a degree at the University of Chester. I studied history and archaeology. I was really, really passionate about both history and archaeology. And I think when I was there, people were saying to me, what are you going to do? Are you going to become a teacher? And I was like, no, I don't think being a teacher is for me in a school. And I said, are you going to go and work in a museum? And I was like, no, I don't think working in a museum is for me. And somehow I've ended up kind of having a blend of the two. I think it was during my time at university that I just fell in love with museums. I thought that I just discovered that they're this amazing place, and they have the potential to tell these incredible stories and connect people with the past. So I decided that I wanted to work in museums. So I went and did a master's in museum studies, and alongside that I went and did a wide range of volunteering, really, in museums across the Northwest. I did like an internship for the National Trust. I volunteered at a couple of different museums in Manchester. And then when I graduated, I was able to find my job with West Cheshire Museums. I think the tips that I'd say to anybody who's starting out and wanting a career in museums is I think, first of all, the majority of people who work in museums are really, really friendly, and they got into museums because they absolutely love it and they want to share their passion with people. So if you think this is an area of work that you're interested in, then perhaps find out your local museum and just ask people if they might have a chat and give you some advice, because people are normally so friendly and so willing to share their experience and give you some guidance. I think the second thing is a lot of museums are working really hard to engage young people. So like I've said before, we're currently working on a project which is for young people to produce a festival. And the experience that our young people are actually getting on that project is amazing. For example, we're getting experience in managing a budget, managing events, and all these incredible transferable skills. And they're on offer specifically to people in your age group. So I think look at museums and look at what projects and volunteering opportunities they have specifically for young people, because there could be some really amazing things there. And now I'm going to hand over to Hannah.
Thank you. So before getting the job of team leader, as I said before, I was a visitor assistant, and that was both for West Cheshire Museums and for Stockport Museums. I love museums and heritage, and I feel like I've probably worked in what feels like almost every museum or art gallery in the Northwest over the past 12 years, and that's voluntary and paid. After completing my undergraduate in creative and performing arts at Liverpool Hope University, I didn't really know much about museums, but because my degree was quite creative and I'd been involved in exhibitions at art galleries across Liverpool, it meant that I'd volunteered in those spaces too and got to know quite a few people. And that sort of led me to realise that I didn't really want to be an artist or a performer as such, but instead just loved storytelling and the nature of exhibitions and putting things on display. And that's where I set to sort of gain as much experience as possible in either art galleries or museums. I then completed a master's degree in art history and curating before I started working at West Cheshire Museums, and that's been quite helpful to me. I wouldn't say it was a necessity to get in the job as a visitor assistant to begin with, but it's definitely helped me towards getting a job as a team leader and working my way up in museums. It's meant that there's been more jobs open to me. And as Liz said, I think my initial reactions working in a museum was I was quite honed in on the idea of working either in an art museum or with something quite specific. And as time's gone on, I've realised that actually I'm interested in the whole thing. And over time, I'll get to do what I really want to do. But for now, working in museums in general is brilliant. As I said, my master's degree and my undergraduate degree and my foundation degree as well that I did before in the job I'm in now. But the main qualification you need is just a degree in general. And that could be in any relevant subject, really, as you've seen from some of the introductions to other staff. That is very, very varied, and people come from quite different backgrounds. So, for example, some of my colleagues have degrees in teaching, theatre studies, fine art. The list's endless, really. I think the most important thing you need to work in museums is and just keep that's just got some good places to look for museum and art gallery jobs. These are ones that we've all found quite handy throughout our career, so have a look at those.
Thank you, Liz, Jonathan and Hannah. That was so good to understand more about what you do at Cultural Services. And thanks for joining us today on the Learn Live channel. We do have more pledges coming up soon. Now, half term being next week, our next broadcast is on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, where we will have Rachel Brooks from Harper Adams University, as she'll be telling us who they are and what they're all about. Then on the 4th of June, we will have Steph from Minerva Arts, as she will be telling us all about the youth theatre and how you can get involved. Please remember, it's still not too late to leave a question on the live chat facility next to the video player. One of our employers will answer your question as soon as possible. And remember, the live chat is always live and safe to use, informative for anyone that leaves a question. We will then see you again on the 2nd of June, where we'll see Rachel from Harper Adams University. See you then, and stay safe.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.